Welcome back to my YouTube channel. In my last video, we had talked about the male reproductive system in an overview manner. In this one, we will look into the male reproductive system in details. So let's understand the male reproductive system in a very detailed manner and understand the functions. So first that we will look into is the scrotum. Scrotum is a muscular bag which holds the testes. It also acts as a thermoregulator. The dermis of the scrotum is made up of a material called dortose tunic. Okay, so let's understand how the scrotum and the testis comes into play. During the seventh month of development, the testis comes into the scrotum through the inguinal canal. So the inguinal canal brings down the testis into the scrotum at the 7th month. This is mainly the testis requires an optimal temperature, and the scrotum also acts as a thermoregulator. So let's understand how it acts as a thermoregulator. The main temperature of the scrotum is 2 to 2.5 degrees Celsius lower than the body. This temperature is important for the sperms to develop and is considered as the optimum temperature. So how does the scrotum regulates this temperature? As it is a loose piece of muscle, as it can be seen, it has the power to expand or contract. So it expands during hot conditions. Therefore, the surface area increases. More the surface area, more is the amount of heat that it gives off. Now let's consider what happens in the cold weather. So it will contract in the cold conditions. And similarly, surface area will decrease. As it contracts, it brings the testis closer towards the body, which has a higher temperature. And hence, a constant temperature is maintained throughout. So this is how the scrotum acts as a thermoregulator. There are several other parts of the testis like the raphe and the septum scorti, which mainly acts as a division internally and externally. So let's recap what we just did. Scrotum is a thermoregulator. It is also a muscular sac, and made up of a tissue called dartos tunic. And lastly, its main duty is to protect the testes and help in sperm generation. So now let's talk about the main primary sex organ of the males, which is called the testis. So let's understand how the testes function and what is their ultrastructure are. So the testes are also called spermaries, and they are extra abdominal, which generally means they are not located inside the abdomen. As we discussed earlier, they are placed outside and they are held in place by the spermatic cords. Spermatic cords. Now let's look into the structure of the testis. It's a very important thing, and mainly the structure helps in the protection of the testis. So let's talk about the structure of the testis. There are 3 layers in the testis which acts as a protective covering. They are mainly tunica vaginalis, tunica albuginea, and tunica vasculosa. So let's look into them in details and understand where they are located and what they actually do. So the 3 membranes are tunica vaginalis, and this is mainly the outer part. Then comes the tunica albuginea, which lies inside the tunica vaginalis and is a fibrous membrane. And lastly, we have the tunica vasculosa, which is the innermost layer and lies inside the tunica albuginea, and it has a large number of vascular capillaries. So in all, the tunica vaginalis protects as the outer part, tunica albuginea is a fibrous membrane, and tunica vasculosa provides the blood supply and other nutrition to the testis. Now let's talk about the testicular lobules. They are another important part and mainly situated inside the testis. There are about 250 lobules inside the testis, and each contain a supercoiled structure called the seminiferous tubules. A supercoiled structure which is called seminiferous The seminiferous tubules are the place where the sperms are generated and they mature. So they are the most important part of the testis. Now let's look into the seminiferous tubules and its each part. It is basically lined with a single layer of germinal epithelium. Let's understand the types of cells in the germinal epithelium. They are cuboidal, spermatogenic cells and has certain large pyramidal cells called the Sertoli cells. The function of the Sertoli cells is very important, helps in the attachment and nourishment of sperms. Along with the Sertoli cells, there are also present the polygonal Leydig cells. Leydig cells mainly produce the hormone testosterone and other androgens. This helps in the development and the nourishment of the overall testes and the sperms. So let's recap what we just learned. The testicles has around 250 lobules, and each lobule has a thing called seminiferous tubules. They are supercoiled structures and are lined with a single layer of germinal epithelium. These germinal epithelium are cuboidal spermatogenic cells, and in between them we have the Sertoli cells, which are pyramidal in shape and helps in the attachment and nourishment of the sperms. Along with them, we also have the Leydig cells, which are polygonal in shape and helps to release the male androgen, which is basically the testosterone hormone, and it acts on the testes and influences sperm production. So this recaps the overall testes and the scrotum and their function. So after the seminiferous tubules, where the sperms are generated, now we will look into the other structure where the seminiferous tubules go and join to. So basically, the seminiferous tubules joins at one end to form the rete testis. So this is our next structure called the rete testis. You have to understand that this is the singular form, while the plural form is the vas efferentia. So vas efferentia is the combined form of all the seminiferous tubules, and about 15 to 20 ciliated structures makes this rete testis. They are mainly used for sperm transport. So where are they transported to? It gets transported to the next structure called the So you must have heard about the epididymis. It's one of the most important structure, and it's mainly seated on each testis, and it is mainly 6 meters long. So it's very long, but how do you think such a long structure gets fitted into that small space? Again, the whole structure is supercoiled and forms a very combined structure, and it sits on the testis. So basically, each epididymis is formed like this. If this is the scrotum and if this is our testis, so this will be our epididymis. So now let's understand what the epididymis is and how it functions. So epididymis is a convoluted tubule. Basically, it is twisted upon itself to form a very supercoiled structure which sits on the top of the testis. So its length is 6 meters long and convoluted. Again, the epididymis is divided into 3 parts called the caput epididymis, corpus epididymis, and the cauda epididymis. So let's see the three parts. So the caput is the head or the first part of the epididymis. Then we have the body or the corpus. And lastly, we have the cauda or the tail portion of the epididymis. So all three portions have their own functions. We have to understand that the caput or the head receives the diluted sperms, and then the body and the tail refines them, makes them concentrated, and then they are stored. So let's understand their overall functions. The caput epididymis or the head part mainly receives the very diluted portion, as I just said, and it helps to concentrate the overall thing. Here the sperms mature and become motile. Along with it, they become physiologically active and they can move basically. And after they become mature and they become motile, they move down to the corpus and the tail portion where they are stored for the long time. So their function is storage and further maturation. So the main function of the epididymis, as we will recap now, is to receive the diluted sperms and concentrate them, mature them, and make them motile, and store them for over throughout the period until they are ejaculated. So this is the function and the structure of the epididymis. Lastly, we also have to understand that the epididymis also reabsorbs any defective sperms or any non-used sperms back into the body, as they are basically certain kinds of microvilli. So they absorb the defective and the damaged sperms or any unused sperms which have been there for quite some time. So they also help to maintain the balance of the nutrition and the minerals in the body. Coming to our next part, we'll talk about the vas deferens, the tail part, vas deferens. The vas deferens mainly forms from the tail part of the epididymis and is mainly a passageway to the urethra and the ejaculatory duct. So the sperms, when they're about to get ejaculated, travels through the vas deferens and traverses the ejaculatory duct and enters the urethra. And sometimes the vas deferens is also used for temporary sperm storage. So the primary function of the vas deferens is to transport the sperms goes to the ejaculatory duct and then to the urethra. And sometimes they are also used for temporary storage. So after this, we will directly talk about the urethra, because ejaculatory duct is basically a small passageway about 2 cm in length. It mainly connects the vas deferens to the urethra, and there is nothing more than it. So now let's talk about the urethra. It is a common passageway for the urine and the sperms. So both urine and sperms can travel through this pathway. When the sperms are traveling and they get to the outside of the body, and that is called ejaculation. Again, the urethra is divided in 3 parts. We will talk about them in details and we will learn what they do. The next part is the middle membranous part. And lastly, we have the penile part. So, as the urethra passes through the prostatic region, this is called the proximal prostatic part. Then the middle part is membranous and it mainly transports the sperms throughout, and then we enter the penile part, which is the last part from where the sperms are ejaculated. Last but not the least, we also have the penis, which is the male reproductive tract external part, and it helps to give out urine and sperms to the outside. The penis has certain veins in it which makes it erogenous. So it can basically take in more blood and can get erect during the time of copulation. There are 3 blood vessels in the penile part and we will learn about them. Let's look into the penile veins and understand how the penis engorges. Like I said, it has 3 areas where blood can fill into, and they are basically like this. As you can see, there are a total of 3 spaces, but actually there are 2 veins. This is called corpus spongiosum, and these 2 regions are called corpus cavernosa. So these 3 areas, they engorge and get filled with blood during sexual activities and helps to make the penis erect. After this, the penis can ejaculate the sperms. Also, the penis has a foreskin which protects the tip of the penis, which is called the glans penis. This is the most reactive and the most sensitive part. It has about 4,000 nerve endings in it that makes it very sensitive. So this covers the overall male reproductive system in details, and I will come back in my next video with the accessory sex glands, and we will learn more about them in a very interesting and a very easy way. So till then, thank you and stay tuned for other videos.